Good takeaway. Walking around while food was prepping. Every little bit adds up, right? That's super critical. Awesome. Love to hear it. So we'll keep this concise again. I did promise that we're going to draw the winners, but I think Devyani's going to need a bit of time to finalize points. So we may have to announce that after the call and email it out. But nonetheless, for being here, you get extra points today. This one counts for the most. So here we go. Day 4, starting ASAP. Well, we are starting, so we can leave that part out. Quick story though. This was I always go back to this story when I'm losing motivation for my own journey and for helping others through Calvert Fitness. Because like anything, I have my good and bad days. This guy named Serge reached out for help. I got a sense that he had enough motivation to do it. He had, I think, 3 daughters around the age of my daughters, or a little bit older, and obviously overweight. I don't know, can't put a number on it, but carrying around maybe 30, 40, 50 extra pounds. And I knew he wanted to do something, but there was that gap between desire and action, and we never closed that gap. He ghosted me, right? And unfortunately, I see a post on his Facebook. It still kind of trips me up, from his wife, posting obviously on his behalf because he had passed out on the bathroom floor, had a heart attack, and died within a 2-hour period, leaving behind 3 daughters. And the only time I am reminded of this is when his daughters post on his page now of all the things that he's missing out on, like, Daddy, I'm going for my law degree, blah, blah, blah. And pretty intense emotional stuff. But it also is helpful for me to say, what if, and what could I have done for him? Maybe nothing. Maybe we would have had a heart attack anyway. But action is the only way we get results. And that's what today is about, is making sure that you take this information and install it down into a system that you can follow. So the reality is, life expectancy, until further notice, I think AI and what they call longevity escape velocity might extend our lifespans quite significantly in the next decade or 2, but that isn't in place for now. So what we can expect is to live until our 80s, unless we're like Irene with good genes, 100 plus, like her mom. What we really have to focus in on is our quality of life not falling off a cliff at 60. Because if we're out of shape in our 30s, that red line, pretty severe complications, okay? So we want to set ourselves up for success. So the muscle we build now is at least retained on some level well into our 70s and 80s, so that we aren't, living those last couple of decades in a state of, vegetation, essentially. All right. So how we do that, and this also aligns with that. I forgot to mention this. It's a cool research paper came out. So there is some real shifts internally in our 40s and 60s. And so it's only, the main takeaway from this is not to nerd out on what's changing, but we need to take more out of our day to prioritize our health. We get away with way less in our 40s, and even less so after 60. So if we're not using it, we lose it pretty quickly. So what to monitor? There's some cool tools, and then there's some simple tools. And I'm going to definitely encourage just simple tools, but I will get into a little bit how I'm monitoring this. Like blood panels, you should definitely go get a full blood panel at least once a year. Lots of cool fitness devices like my Oura Ring that tracks some pretty cool stuff. And then cognitive function, hormonal balance. It all ties together, right? So what is biological age? So it's just based on an algorithm. And I'm sure there's plenty of people that got a really low biological age who died of a heart attack or something that was unexpected. But what I use this for is ensuring I'm doing what I have control over to fight that aging clock as much as possible. And this basically is an AI algorithm I use that combines like heart health, conditioning, VO2 max, body composition, more so like visceral fat versus your body weight on a BMI, because that's obviously flawed, and heart health. So for now, I don't feel 28 most days, but internally, apparently I am. So I'm going with that. And how I do that is what we're going to dive into today. So the first metric to really pay attention to is visceral fat. So that's not the stubborn, jiggly stuff that's left over after you've gotten fairly lean. It's the hardened stuff around your organs. And we all probably know someone with a really distended belly, but it's hard to the touch. It almost looks like there might be a six-pack on top. That is what we want to avoid. For various reasons, you want it almost at zero. So this was with a DEXA scan. I have 0.39 pounds of visceral fat. Anything under 2 is generally fair, safe. If you're in the 3 to 4 pounds of this stuff, definitely needs focus, because this is linked more and more to everything bad under the sun. Type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, even your testosterone levels can be greatly influenced by this if you're a man. Dog is tuning in because no one else is here, so she's got to be attached to my hip today. All right, so type of 1, that makes sense. Visceral fat. Yes, a scan is the only way to know for sure, but we can tell through photos quite easily whether or not you're in a harmful state or not. Part 2 to this equation. Okay, no worries, Ray. See your comment. Is VO2 max. So you can go somewhere local, get the maps put on and run the treadmill test or bike test and actually get your score. But some of these devices now at least give you an estimate. I think an Apple Watch can do this. My Aura can. So you just want to get a sense for your baseline, because getting your VO2 max to above average for your age, I found this hard to believe, but the science is there, reduces your risk of premature death by 50%. Like there's no other thing that's more important here. No supplement can get you that kind of stat, right? So how you do this is a combination of training in different heart rate zones. Strength training certainly can help here with your max effort sets, and walking more, right? Okay, good. So we're going to quickly nerd out and then we'll get past this stuff. But this is one other variable I test because it's done through my Aura. It's basically how stiff your arteries are. And it tracks how fast blood flows through. And then it gives you an estimate on your cardiovascular age. It matches up pretty close with that biological age test at minus 10 years, my current actual age. You also want to look at resting heart rate and heart rate variability. Resting heart rate's relative, but if you're in the healthy normal range, great. Heart rate variability is more kind of a test to see how well recovered you are. If you're overtraining, if it's chronically low, it can be a sign of heart issue to come, but for the most part, you just look at your averages and try to improve it marginally over time. It does go down with age regardless. Okay, good news is you don't need to nerd out on all of that stuff. That's just me. I live for fitness. I made a career out of it. So I obviously take it a few layers deeper, but you don't need to be perfectly healthy and set yourself up for success, okay? So type of 1, if you're ready for the simple blueprint. Paying attention, yes, there we go. There's it. There it is. So as promised today, it's going to be some summary of what we've been talking about over the last 3 days, but just consolidate it down into what I think is really what moves the needle most. How to reverse the clock and awaken your metabolism. And I think these two go hand in hand. A younger body, biological age, a younger, better functioning metabolism. Okay, brass tacks. I think that I always wanted to use that expression. It's kind of a lost art nowadays. I think it's brass tacks. I hope it is. I didn't actually look at that. So number 1 is the most obvious, is move more, because it will improve VO2 max, which we saw can reduce our risk of premature death. Always a good thing. But it also helps with calorie burn, like we talked about. It definitely will improve metabolism without that down regulation that super intense training has. And just going from 4,000 steps to 7,000, 55% lower risk in dying. And I think we all don't want to die, right? I'm pretty sure if you're with me on this call, you don't want to die. If you do, wrong place. Okay, good. Got some hands raised. So this is a nice chart that shows kind of 8,000 to 10,000 is the sweet spot. The more you move, the longer you live, less risk of dying. It sort of levels off. Like if you can't realistically, stick to 12,000 steps a day, don't try to do it temporarily. But that sweet spot tends to be that 6,000 to 10,000. For fat loss purposes, 8,000 to 10,000 is certainly what we encourage. So 2 to 5 extra years of life based on a study of increasing from 4,000 to 8,000 steps. So if you want more time with loved ones, make time for movement. All right, good stuff so far. Harmful habits. So definitely the smoking one. I think more and more research, and it's old news now, that the more you smoke, the higher your risk of all sorts of bad things happening. But alcohol is now kind of in vogue, being the new target. Like, okay, they used to think, well, red wine a night was perfectly good for you and your health, and resveratrol, which you don't get enough of from red wine, but big wine had some really good marketing back in the day and convinced us all we need it. I still think you can consume it in moderation. It's a part of our social life. I'm not going to judge someone for doing it. Just know that there's no real health benefit to it. In fact, it can be harmful if taken beyond very moderate to steady. Okay, we got some good. There's probably more for that list, but those are the big two, I think. Another one that's probably not too, obvious to all of you, but after watching the first 3 days, I think you understand that, obsessing about weight loss isn't the only equation here. We definitely want to maximize our muscle mass and our bone density. And we'll get more into the bone in a second, but how to do this is simply some form of resistance training. A couple times a week is enough to maintain what you got. If you want to build some, more is better to a point. But for the vast majority, 3 times. What do you consider moderate alcohol? Well, the Canadian government came out with research showing that more than 2 standard drinks a week was considered more than moderate. And that ruffled some feathers, but they were just looking at the body of evidence. That drinking more than a couple glasses has negative consequences, right? All right. Again, because the theme here is all about not dying young or old, we want to live forever. Low muscle mass, higher risk of death. Arguably, having a bit extra fat is less harmful to you than not enough muscle. It was 63 times more likely in women, premature death, if they didn't have enough muscle on their body, right? Because, well, we know if you fall and break a hip, you end up in the hospital, you get pneumonia, and some people pass from that. And the stronger you are, the stronger your bones, the less likely you're going to be put into positions like that. Good. Type yes in the chat if this is still kind of making sense for you. I'm not moving too fast, or maybe I'm moving too slow. We got some thumbs? Okay, good. So I like to use this example. We all understand like compound interest. The earlier you invest, the better. The more you put in, the better. But if you start at 25, you're making more. Even if you start at 35, put the same amount of money in. I think that concept's understood. Same thing in fitness. This grainy photo shows a 74-year-old sedentary man. And this white layer is adipose tissue. Fancy way of saying body fat. Whereas we have a 74-year-old triathlete, looks like a really lean flank steak, right? It's all muscle. So good news is a lot of what happens with aging can be avoided by simply continuing to work at it. All right, we talked about bone health, but a way to do this is with a DEXA T-score. And the more positive your score, the lower your risk. So if you're in the minuses, you're approaching osteoporosis. And I think oftentimes a doctor will have you get a T-score done if they feel you're at risk or you're showing signs, right? So good news is the best determinant of this is strength training in combination with protein intake. So you're all doing that, right? Yes, yes, yes. Good, good, good. All right, balance. So good balance, important. 3 primary sensory systems. You can get like a balance test in a lot of like, I don't know if Body Measure does it, but there are places locally. I'll send you some short ones I kind of do routinely, like eyes closed on one foot. You get better at this the more you work at it. But you'll get a lot of this just by strength training, having to hold weight in your hands or single leg, single one side movements. Your body's forced to adapt and get better, get more balance, right? So a lot of what you're doing already is going to help here. Grip strength, it was hard to believe, but this one was a huge predictor of longevity later in life. So I had a test done. You don't need a test done. If you're strength training with weights that you have to hold in your hands for prolonged periods, you're likely doing all you can in this regard, right? Sorry, I'm missing. Chat's not showing up. Yoga helps with balance, absolutely. And a misconception out there is that strength training is like makes you less flexible, whereas the best way to remodel muscle is under load, right? Like a fully stretched hamstring on a stiff-legged deadlift, it's going to make you more mobile than like body weight static holds and stretching. So there's that misconception that bodybuilders are bulky and can't move around. Yeah, sure, the ones that are on steroids getting huge might be that way, but for the vast majority, strength training is your best defense. All right, so this is a little off the board for me, but like just continuing to work your brain is important. Lifelong learning. If you feel like you're done growing, you're dying, and that applies to everything, but certainly from a cognitive perspective, the more you try to learn new things. My grandpa did Sudokus well into his 90s. That was one of his secrets to success. The better off you'll be. And the brain-body connection is a real thing. Like the more you move, the more you exercise, the better your brain functions. But this is kind of the side to that where we still want to do things where we're reading, engaging, learning, and so on. Ray used a hand gripper. Oh, those things are a lost art. My dad used to use those things. The wrist grip. Love it. All right. Another one that's a bit off the board for me, but healthy relationships. You know, isolation we saw during COVID accelerated aging in a lot of people. Because you're not socially engaging with people, you lose that functioning in your brain. And it just makes us happier. And we have all seen the couple where one spouse passes and the other one passes shortly after because they lost that link to someone that kept them alive. Alrighty. Keep them moving. We all know positive-minded people and negative people, and the ones who have, you know, not to say you're positive all the time, but if you see the good in things, you practice gratitude, you have purpose and goals, and you give yourself a break without beating yourself up. Very, very valuable links to longevity. It just makes life better, frankly. I think everyone understands that piece. I talked about this, like health screenings, like I get a full blood panel. I have to negotiate with my doctor because I'm too young for it to be too frequent, but every 6, 8, 12 months, as much as you can look at and underneath the hood, the better. It's just a snapshot into a certain day and time, and some values can be misleading, but we do want to see because they'll flag it, right? It'll come up if it's high or high normal. And a lot of your internal health can be printed out on 1 page or 2 pages. I think this is the heart page, yeah. Okay, 11, keeping this moving. Sleep, huge factor, because we all understand how we feel when we don't get enough sleep, but it's linked to a lot of negative things. For one, heart failure. Cut your risk of heart failure by 42% by getting consistent quality sleep. And that was over 400,000 people in the UK. So pretty exhaustive evidence. So those at least at risk slept that 7 to 8 hours. Unfortunately, the vast majority of us need 7 to 8 hours to feel our best, but to optimize our health too. There's like 0.5% of the population that potentially can get away with less, but you would know if you're one of those. And last but not least, optimize hormones. So that might mean hormone replacement therapy if you're approaching menopause or menopause, you're a bit older, you're not feeling like yourself, get blood work done to determine that first. But absolutely could be a lifesaver. It could complicate things too. If you're in a normal range, try to optimize through natural means. Only go down this route if you feel like, and obviously your doctor would make that determination that you're not optimized and you're feeling it's really holding you back. Okay, what about the shortcuts to increase longevity, improve metabolism? Well, this is all the rage, so I have to address it. the GLP-1s, the Ozempics, the Mounjaros is the newer one. Could be a lifesaver for the right person, could be a horrible side effect-ridden journey for others. So I'll talk about how to minimize the bone and muscle risks. Most people discontinue within 2 years for various reasons. Side effects are real. There's no free lunch with this. However, it tends to vary. Some people can take it. Maybe they're a little nauseous or backed up for a week or two, and then they seem to settle in. But a lot of people are ending up in the ER with serious consequences. So one of those last resorts with a lot of caution, but it might be, if you've tried it all, just know it doesn't burn fat by itself. It's largely suppressing your appetite. So you eat less, which is obviously the formula we've talked about. Yeah, low dose testosterone is a question in the chat. Especially if someone's carrying around too much body fat, it's going to create some issues. Like a lot of it's going to get converted to estrogen. They might have to go on an aromatase inhibitor to reduce estrogen. So I tell people, get lean first. I bet it'll take care of itself. Your hormones will correct when you're a little bit leaner and you're exercising and strength training. But it could be the missing piece for others. So I hate giving blanket recommendations there. But thanks. Yeah, you're 40. I think you're still good for those over 40. All right. So this was this trial that showed with Ozempic, 40% of the weight loss on the scale was muscle and bone and lean mass as defined by the DEXA scan. I would argue you could get most of that, or at least most of the effect negated by the whole combination we've talked about throughout these 3-4 days. Strength training, dieting a little bit slower so you don't lose a bunch of muscle, and sufficient protein. So I don't think Cindy's on the call, but this was her DEXA scan. So the second and third variables here, well, it's not going to make it any bigger. So she started in August with us. Like her first scan showed she lost 14 pounds, not almost, but a good chunk of that was muscle, like 5 pounds of muscle. So we went back to the drawing board with our approach. She gained a pound on the scale, but lost 9.2 pounds of fat and gained 8.2 pounds of muscle. So that's the ideal scenario, is the scale might not move a ton, but your body composition sure is. You're gaining that muscle, that lean bone, and you're losing body fat. So that's the 1-2 punch that makes all the difference in how you look, feel, and perform. All right. So type of 1, if this makes sense, shortcuts you're looking for is probably the basics you're overlooking. Yes, yes. Some of you are already hitting the basics, so I get that, but yeah, we got some ones. Good stuff. I already told you to type 1, so don't type 1 again. You know you need to embrace a lifestyle change though, right? Like hopefully these 4 days, I've sold you what you want, telling you about the hacks, but I'm trying to give you what you need, which is truly the foundation of a lifestyle change that lasts forever. That's the only way the results stick forever. So what's the link between knowing and actually doing? A lot of people know they should be eating better and exercising more, but they don't do it. And in my experience, the golden ticket is good old accountability to community, coach in some cases, training partners. Proximity is power. I saw a quote from Mr. Beast, who said the ratio of people in my circle ordering pizza compared to those ordering chicken was way off. And in the last year, he surrounded himself with people who live the lifestyle that he wanted to, because that's the only way you get the results you want. Being around people that are leveling you up. So if you look at your inner circle, is there anyone actually holding you accountable, holding you to a higher version of yourself? Then that's what's missing. I know for me where I'd be if I didn't ever hire mentors in fitness. Shout out to Ken Hill back in the early 2000s. Certainly in business, I would still be a trainer with a few clients working at the radio. But mentors help me get my message out. So that's why you're here. Something I do in my messaging has you show up. My wife tries, says Dan. Action is the cure. Yeah, spousal accountability, tread lightly with that one, rarely works. I have to go to a meeting. No worries, Merle. So essentially, we're trying to Mr. Beast it around here and give you the support, to soar with eagles, not be surrounded by crabs in a bucket who pull you back down. So make sure you audit your inner circle. Our circle in CalFit is all about leveling you up. It's what the community is for. It's what the coaching's for. So I won't go too in depth here, but we certainly know what we're doing, blah, blah, blah. Lacey, just so you know, was a mom of 5 kids under 8. So your excuses are invalid. There you go. Brett burned off his love handles. I don't remember how, was Gene on this call? Maybe. So essentially what we're promising is total body transformation, muscle mastery, because that, weight loss is only one part of the equation. I have to mention that up front, but then I really want to ensure that we actually give you the secret in the end, which is preserving muscle and bone and getting stronger at the same time, so that age becomes just a number and you get results that last. All right. So I have so many of our members already on this call. I'm hoping someone volunteers to just chat really quickly about their experience before we let you all go. Who do we got? I can call out someone. Oh, I was going to call out Trevor. If you got better audio today, that'd be great.
Yeah, there was a conference call going on behind me, and you were picking up their voices instead of mine yesterday. So,
yeah, with the headphones, right?
Yeah, I think I need a new headset, so I'm going wireless today.
I love it.
What do you need me to?
Yeah, so you just gave us a Google review, like kind of summarize what your experience has been so far, because you're fairly new still. Like, what's been the biggest benefit?
You bet. I don't know, like always thought I could do it myself, and I ride my Peloton and figure, I'll follow the workout programs there, but was never really held accountable, right? So something that one of my goals was to step away from electronics and get away from it, but I find myself now more glued to it, just in your app, and then making more conscious decisions, like had to like just randomly get up and fly up for work here this week and for an emergency repair, right? And now I'm away from my meal prep. I'm away from my comfort zone, and luckily the hotel has got a nice gym, but now I'm like, my struggles. What am I going to eat? So it's like load up on protein bars and yogurts and try and make healthy decisions when they bring the layoff pizza around yesterday and only have a couple slices and stuff like that, right? But but now like just my coworkers and they're good with it, right? Like, hey guys, I need to go. Hey, we got to go to the keg for dinner. Okay, sorry, right? Like, I need my baseball steak. So it's, or we go to the other places that they like, and now I'm struggling to go through the menu and clicking in the app and loading a meal and deleting it. But it's helping me stay accountable and to hit those targets, right? Otherwise, I'd be that guy that I couldn't walk away from. Oh, there's still pizza there. I'm eating it, right? Like, it can't go bad. Like, so yeah, like I like to ramble on. No, it's been a great experience. It's keeping me accountable. The workouts are great. At first, I thought, like, as if only a couple little exercises, that's all I'm going to do. And then I think I wrote you a note about it, right? Like the first leg day, I'm like, we're going to do just 3 or 4 exercises. And then my legs were like trembling at the end. I'm like, oh my gosh. But then I tweaked myself today in the gym doing my lunges and squats because there's heavier weights I could use here. So, I get a little bit of that recovery mode for the weekend. But no, it's been great, and at times tough to manage, but there's so much on the app that's helped me, stay active and then just fit in those stretches and recoveries that I probably wouldn't do. I'd just be sitting on the bike, riding the bike, and eating way more, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's human nature. We can rationalize any choice in the moment, but if you have another human in the mix, like the app and the data is one piece to the puzzle, but having someone actually monitoring, nudging you, checking in, reviewing, that's really where the magic happens. So I feel that's my secret for sure. What have been your specific results, just to kind of, before you let you go, how long you've been in the program and what you've done so far?
There's no scale here at the hotel, so I can only go off what I weighed myself in at last week. So I started, I don't know, I like to say 250, but the first weight I weighed myself on the app was 246. And then last week I weighed myself as 233. So that's from December 19th. So going through the holidays, and it's only been a couple days that I've missed my targets between then and there, and had some away hockey tournaments for my kids coaching. So it's making sure I'm packing stuff there, right? So like the win is just me being more self-conscious on what I'm eating and the quality of food I'm eating, right? So
Love it.
does that answer your question?
It does, yeah. The power of consistency and showing up still when you're on the road when
Yeah.
imperfect conditions, there's still a
So
way to do it.
feeling stronger, clothes are looser, belt
100%.
size down, and lost weight, right? So we're getting there.
I love it. Absolutely. Thanks for sharing that, man. It was awesome. Keep plugging away. That's the secret. All right. So yeah, someone asked to look at the app, so I can pull that up and screen share quick, but we are doing this 10-day test, $10 a day. I think I haven't checked my email, but 7 signed up yesterday, so we have 3 left. My math is right. I like to do things in tens because a fitness coach, I can't count beyond 10. So you can fill this form out or just shoot me a private message wherever we have an active chat. You want to get in on this? Make sure you take some sort of action from this. That's what it's all about. All right. Any final questions? I'll pull up the app quick, but if I've gotten all your questions answered, feel free to drop and we'll hopefully see you guys rocking and rolling over the next couple weeks here. Let me see. Trevor, do you mind if I open your profile? Just so I have an example to share.
Sure, I don't know. You'll see.
Okay. I'm not sure. They can't really see me. Okay. Yeah, so you already mentioned your weight, so we're good with that. So yeah, you have a task list. This is obviously what it looks like on the coaching end. Like I can see every activity he does when he logs his breakfast. Awesome. So the goal is to track nutrition and get your gold bars at the end of the day. And then you might have a habit to track steps, water, and he had a strength workout earlier that he completed in 32 minutes. So very data driven, but the real magic is in someone behind the scenes keeping you on task. I have 13 messages to get through. Oh, I didn't want to show everything here. But the challenges we run is a real gamified to this. Shout out to Lori, who's in the league currently. So you get points for doing everything you should be doing within the app as it is. And there's a real community element to that with the small groups in the chat. But yeah, hopefully that answers your question. I can't remember who asked that to see the app, but this is how it looks on a desktop. So it's a little different on a phone, obviously. Okay. Cool. We'll leave it there. Hopefully this was fun for all. Any final questions? If you don't want to ask them publicly, reach out privately. It was a treat to put this together for you all. And we'll see you guys next week. Have a good weekend.
Take care. Thanks, Mitch.
Cheers.
Thanks, Mitch.
See you guys.